Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video, Bishop Barron is answering Alex O'Connor's question of how Bishop Barron would respond or lead somebody who is skeptical about God to belief in God. Let's see what he has to say, and I will have a few comments afterwards.
For such people, what are they to do when they don't disagree that meaning should be grounded in God, but they just can't seem to find God and therefore lead what they believe to be a meaningless life?
It depends on the person and depends on their situation in life. What I mean there is you could argue with someone. See, because to me, the position you're describing is like someone who would say there's a radically contingent world, but there's no ground of contingency. I think that's an incoherent position. So if you hold that, I would try to argue you out of it. In the same way, to say there are really objective values, but there's no transcendent ground or explanation for them is an incoherent position, I would say. And I use everyone from Plato through, contemporary times to try to show that. But more often than not, you don't argue people into it. You accompany them. I use Pope Francis's language. You accompany people, and you help them to see how these values do, in fact, open on to a higher ground. Usually, we would say, saints who are living in and out of that higher space that best witness to it. And so it's the holiness of people around them that shows them the ground of ultimate meaning and truth. So to some degree it's arguing, but I think to a large extent it's showing, it's an accompaniment by a saint. I don't mean just a canonized saint, I mean by a holy person. That means someone who's whole or more integrated, that often opens the window. I'd say too, as a Catholic, that's the point of liturgy. The liturgy has a rational dimension to it. It's filled with words and so on. But a lot of the liturgy is non-rational. It's sense experience, it's smoke, and it's colors, and it's lights, and it's gesture, and it's like a dance, as Thomas Merton said, like a ballet. It's with certain prescribed movements and gestures. Well, I mean, it's all up and down the tradition. People who were moved by the liturgy to suddenly the window opens, the door opens, or use the metaphor, change the metaphor, the floor opens and you go down to a deeper place. That can happen through the aesthetics of the liturgy. It can happen through the witness of a saint. It can happen through rational argument. So I'd use any and all of those, depending on the person.
There's just a few things that I want to say regarding this question. Even before Bishop Barron gave his response and I was listening to Alex's question, the first thing that came to my mind is something that eventually I think that Bishop Barron mentioned, and you might have missed it in passing because it was one of the first things that he said. But I was thinking that if there is an objective world, there is nothing in the sense that is subjective. All there would be is slices that you are pinpointing in a moment of that objective reality. Now, that seems to be exactly what Bishop Barron is saying with the idea of contingency. So you can rewatch and see what he had to say about that. But as Bishop Barron states, and I think it's fundamentally true, this is much more than a reasonable issue, or it's much more than an argument. The reality is that it gets into faith. It gets into believing in something that you cannot see. Now that's fundamental and a part of what it means to be a religious person. But then again, in the Christian worldview and in the Christian religion, we have God incarnate entering time, space, and history and revealing himself. So it's not necessarily an issue of argument as it is about revelation, the fact that God has revealed himself in Jesus Christ, and therefore we can know everything that we need to know because God has revealed himself in Jesus Christ. But I think that for the majority of people, when they're really doubting, there's sin problems, but there's also emotional, experiential baggage that they bring into their beliefs. I definitely think that experiences influence and color our rational inquiry into things. And I think that Bishop Barron obviously is talking about that when he's talking about coming alongside of people and walking with them through different things. But I think it's ultimately pointing people back to Jesus Christ. So I hope you enjoyed this video and are thinking through these types of issues. Hopefully you have a missional mind that wants to engage and reach people that are not in the Christian faith. That's one of the things that Jesus was so adamant that we are to do. We are to go into the world. We need to have missional minds and we need to be out in the world evangelizing so that more people can come into the faith. I hope that this video inspires you to do that. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.